Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tonight's on the Sofa. Well, we've certainly got a treat for you tonight. We have Dave Bamber with us. So just a few things before we get on to the main event of the evening. You may have seen that membership and Matchday Draw is now on our website to be purchased. Anybody that's a season ticket holder does not have to buy a membership. That is done through your season ticket now. So any season ticket holders will automatically become members of the OSC. You will have the opportunity to opt out if you want to. As soon as we get the data for all the season ticket holders, you will receive an email from us, which will give you the instructions if you want to opt out of that. It will also give you all the benefits and everything that you can go, just in case you don't know. So Matchday Draw, as you know, we do our Matchday Draw. It's our main source of income for the OSC, which enables us to help the club and to help charities as well. It's £1 a ticket, and you can buy a subscription for the season. So you can buy £23 worth or £46 worth. And it's good for birthday presents in that if you've got anybody that's got anything these next couple of months, just an idea. Season tickets are now available to collect from the club shop. They are open tomorrow to do that. And we've got a couple of friendlies this week. Wednesday night we're at Supermarine, and then on Saturday we're at Melksham. Okay. Just to let you know what we're doing for the next couple of weeks. So next Monday we've got Iffy and Nora. The next Monday after that, which is the 17th, we've got Jarrah Eiffel. And the following week, we got Andy Nicholas. So we got a good selection of players to fill in the gap over pre-season. And then we'll start with our Monday night panels when the season starts after every Saturday home game. Okay, and we'll fill in with ex-players and things on the days that we're away. So let's bring Vic on.
Hi, Chris. Hello. How are you? How are you? You all right?
I'm good. How are you? Yeah, I'm very well, right. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Right. I think we've got a lot to get through tonight. So should we not hang about and should we get Mr. Bamber on?
I think we should.
I can see he's just adjusting his screen. So good evening.
Evening.
Is that a biscuit you had for your cup of tea?
It was a bit of fruit, actually. I just managed to get it down just last minute. A bit of a rush.
Okay, so any question?
I have to work for a living now, you see, so I can't get finished at 12:30. I have to work till a bit later.
Of course. Well, players don't get finished at 12:30 these days, do they? They do double sessions and everything. So. Couldn't cope.
No, but I guarantee you, did the amount of running that we did, they'd have been finished at 12:30.
I don't doubt. Okay, so I'm going to leave you now. So I'll leave you in Vic's capable hands. Any questions, please put them in the comments and we'll get through as many as we can. Okay.
Chris, thanks ever so much. Mr. Bamber, thank you so much for joining us. Nice to know you're living healthily with a piece of fruit. That's always good to know for an ex-pro. We'll get on to the running with Lou Macari very shortly because there was a lot of it, if I remember rightly. And I've got to tell you, the reaction to you coming on tonight has been phenomenal. I can't remember in all the years that we've been doing this, as many people looking forward to hearing from you tonight. So I've got to say, you're in company of friends tonight, Mr. Bamber. Is that okay with you?
Well, that's nice to know because, that time there was so special. It really was. I enjoyed it so much. I mean, that and Blackpool was the two times that was, the twice that it was fantastic. But it was difficult to beat the Swindon times because we went from the low level through the leagues and good set of lads, good camaraderie. We loved it down there. Me and my wife had my first daughter. Was born in Swindon. The night before we played Shrewsbury, the infamous Shrewsbury game, and I didn't dare tell Lou that I'd been up all night because he wouldn't have played me, and I kept it quiet and told the lads not to say anything to him. And I played in that game, scored, and we won 1-0. So it was a great day and a great night. I'll never forget.
Incredible time, and we'll go through your career a little bit because it's quite interesting. But I've got to show you this. This is from the souvenir brochure of the 4th Division Championship campaign. A lovely picture of Mr. Dave Bamber in a similar kit to the one behind me there, which we put up in your honour. If you appreciate that. And it says on here, Dave Bamber, the last piece in Lou's jigsaw. Now we'll get through to how you got to Swindon, because it was in November, if I remember rightly, about 1985. You came to the town. But you'd been at Portsmouth before that, and Trelleborg in Sweden briefly. So how did that work?
Well, I signed for Portsmouth, and basically they just asked me. Alan Ball asked me did I want to go to Trelleborg for the summer to earn some extra money. So I said, "Oh, yeah, it sounds good." It's a Premier League there. Unbeknown to me, that Trelleborg was got about 3 points all season, and the possibility of staying up was about as much chance of England winning the Ashes yesterday. Actually, they got quite close, didn't they? I went out there, and naively, for the money that I got, I remember we went out after the first game for a drink with the other players and their partners. And I went to the bar and bought the drinks, and I had £100 with me, which I thought was sufficient, for us to go out buy a few drinks and have a meal. And when we're talking about what was it, about 1986, would it be? Somewhere around that time. 85. So it was money went a lot longer then, and I didn't have enough money to pay just for the drinks, never mind anything else. Everything was like 5 times more money over there, so it wasn't one of my greatest ideas. And to be honest with you, I never really got given a chance at Portsmouth. Alan Ball, I don't know why he bought me. He never really particularly fancied me. And obviously Lou kept phoning me up and sort of saying he wanted to get me in. I just wanted to play first team football, to be honest with you. That was, I'd had enough of playing in the reserves. I wasn't the sort of guy who'd be happy just picking his money up playing reserves. I didn't like that sort of situation. I wanted to be playing. So I came on loan initially. I think I did. I'm sure I did.
Yeah, you did. You came on loan to begin with, and then went back, I think, to Pompey, didn't you? And then Lou decided to splash the cash, 10 grand, I think it was.
Well, there was arguing over money. There was argued over money, and I knew I was going to go, but like Lou was playing hardball, and I knew Portsmouth would let me go anyway. And I said to him, look, they'll end up let me come, and they did. So it was just a bit of hardball. That was all.
Which happens in football a lot, as we've seen, of course, over the years. You'd started at Blackpool, I think, which you went back to a little bit later on. I guess that's kind of your club. I mean, we're going to talk about Swindon, but Blackpool, of course, you're in the Hall of Fame there. So is your club, I guess, isn't it?
Well, it obviously is, because I started there, finished there, and I won the Golden Boot, scored 39 goals in one season. So we went to Wembley twice. I infamously missed a penalty, which cost us promotion. It was the last penalty of the playoffs. And then the season after we was when I scored 39, and we got promoted. So it's my hometown because my wife was born here, and we sort of like settled here. So in that respect, it was. But I wouldn't say that it was the massively more my hometown than enjoyable than the time I had at Swindon. Swindon was special time, and it ran Blackpool a very close neck and neck between them as to where I enjoyed my time most, really.
When you joined, if I remember right, Swindon hadn't quite hit the straps, had they? They were in that little sticky spell. I think you made your debut at home against Mansfield, won that game, lost against Leyton Orient away, and then there was the Ipswich infamous Milk Cup tie, which was a bit of a hammering. But they hadn't quite hit the straps as you did after Christmas and New Year. So the team, I guess, was settling down. How did you find the training under Lou?
I found it a culture shock, to be honest with you. We'd obviously, and I can't think who the youth team coach was. It lad who played on the wing, Dave Thomas for QPR and Everton. Dave Thomas. So it's all very football based, very skills based. It was hard, people stuck the foot in and stuff. There was a few lads who who didn't hold back. So it was it was an aggressive time, but it wasn't like running, like we didn't do the running. And then I came here, and it was it was not particularly based around skill and football. It was based around getting everybody fit and very fit. Really, it was the running was something else. And to be fair, it did get me a level of fitness that I'd never been at in my career. So it did. I'm not decrying it completely. I think we could have done more football-based stuff, but certainly from a fitness point of view, there's no fitter team than us or able to do the running that we did in any game we ever played, really.
Because it was incredible, wasn't it? In that long run of unbeaten games, the amount of late goals you scored, because that fitness really came to it, didn't it?
Yeah, I can remember like games, because I used to argue with Lou about this. We used to run 6 miles on the roads on a Thursday, and honestly, like I had a hip replacement and my other hip, so I used to like struggling to walk on a Friday, let alone train. And I think running on the roads for 6 miles concrete didn't do me any good. And the first half of the games, we'd sort of like be a bit laborious and going 0-0, and then second half it was like we'd run that training out of us, and we'd just like up a gear and just steamroll. I never ever, even when we was one behind, I never ever felt like teams would beat us. I always had that bizarre confidence. I mean, rightly, but I'm not saying for whatever reason, it was just there that we would beat them, and never expected to get beat when I played for Swindon at that time. I really didn't. It was a strange confidence that went with the lads that we played with and the level of fitness that we had.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And Craig has messaged in. Wonderful hit from Dave. Enjoyable to watch him play. Great night, Chester at home, which we'll get to a little later, of course. That night when you clinched promotion, and I think
probably my favourite game of the whole time that I was at Swindon. In truth.
Yeah. Now let's talk about your ability to get penalties, because that's what many people have said. So many comments about you being able to get penalties, because you were played wide, if I remember rightly, to begin with, and you ran into the box, and I guess defenders kind of nibbled, and down you went. So tell us about that ability.
My nickname at Swindon was the Big Chancer, and it was it came in. We went to Ireland. We won. This is quite an amusing tale, really. We win the league. We win it by the most amount of points ever. So we get like, where are we going? We're going to Magaluf. What we're doing? Anyway. Where do we go? We go to Ireland, and we play a game every day, and that was our treat. So you can imagine that the lads are like, So I'm playing on this game, and we'd had about 6 pints of Guinness the night before. So I'm playing this game against whoever it was, Bray or somebody in Ireland. And there's this guy on the side, and he says, "Who's the big chancer? Who's the big chancer?" And that was me, like, because I got the ball and I'd take people on, I could take a chance, and that was it. Everybody called me Chancer from that time onwards. So I would just basically commit people and let them put a leg out, and if they did, I'd just nick the ball past them, let them carry through, and because obviously I had quite long legs, I was the ability to just nick it off them, and just as they and commit them. So I was never a diver. I was just one that basically set people up for it, and that there's no wrong with that. You know what I mean? It's Grealish does it all the time now. He's a perfect proponent of the fact that he shows the ball to people and they think they can nick it off him and they can't bump. He's nicked it away and they take him by the legs or he's away. So yeah, it's not akin to how people dive these days. It's more a commitment of people to get the ball when really that I know that I can nick it from them and that I would then let them have the contacts and go down. Simple as that.
Well, I think most Town fans would agree it was fabulous to watch because you must have been a nightmare running at a defender. I mean, have you ever spoken to defenders you've played against and said, how was it? I mean, because you had that ability to go past people.
Yeah, I always did have, like, from a young age, and it was like the change of gear and like, you need them sort of like sharp, quick feet to do it. And I didn't, obviously the older they got, the less I had that ability, because I played with so many injuries over the years that I suffer from it badly now. But I never ever asked anybody whether they thought it was difficult or it wasn't, because they invariably didn't like the fact that I'd sort of like suckered them and that we got the penalty, and they used to like, oh, you've gone, yeah, there's no wrong that sorry, but if you put your foot out and trip me, I ain't going to stand up, especially the penalty box. That's the name of the game.
Sure. Here's a message from Pete Lango, who was a junior at the club when you were there. Dane Bamber, legend. What a player, had king hair then. Ask him if he remembers the road running and the athletics track. At the 400 metres at the back, of course. Just tell us about that.
Well, every day before training, we would do three 400s timed. Obviously you'd have I think it's something like about a 60-second to a 2-minute break in between. So you do 3 of them, then you do 3 200s, you'd have a break and do 3 200s, and then you do 3 100s, and that was hard. And especially as Louis timed it, and the problem for me is that I was the best 400 meter runner, so I had to always win that particular distance. And there's a few times people tried to beat me. I remember John Gittins having a right go, because he could run, that lad, of 100 meters. Well, he was unbelievable, and he sort of shot off for the first 200, and then somebody shot him about 250 meters to go, and he just stopped. But the funniest thing that I remember about the running was Paul Roberts. Do you remember him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Come from Millwall,
Yeah.
He was all right, mate. Giving it all this. So first 400, he's up at the front, and fair play to him, you know what I mean. Second 400, he's sort of, it's a bit more slightly going towards the middle. Third one, he gets halfway around and spews up, and he just couldn't do any more running. And that was what people would come and do. I remember Phil King. We used to beg Louis, just let Kingy he can't do the long running. He can't do the thing. He's knackered on a Saturday, and he wouldn't have it. But it was all each to their own, because Kingy was one of the quickest lads on the team, and he was a proper built for sprints. He was never built for distance. But John Gittins, we tried to get a bet on with Reading for Keith, for him to raise Keith Curl, because they said they'd put all their money in, and we said we'd put all our money in, and I would have put every penny I had on poor John's. Obviously, he died, didn't he, recently? Against them, and they wouldn't have Keith Curl beat, and we wouldn't have Gitto beat, because that last sort of 15-20 yards on the 100, his knees would come up and he would just take off again. He was a bit like Usain. He was tremendously quick.
Well, Pete's still got your training top, apparently, and he says the last one goes again on the 400 meters. So did you have to, if you finished, well, not that you ever did finish last, but presumably you had to go again if you were last?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. But what I do remember was that on a Friday, we do a lighter session, and at the end we do a bit running around the outside of the track, and we would have a race, two people, and whoever lost had to then sprint again, and if you won, you won against one sprint with somebody, you went in and you finished for the day, and obviously go and get your shower, and invariably Colin Calderwood was always the last one against like the reserve goalkeeper and stuff, and some of the lads used to race him like running backwards and things, and but I mean that showed how good his brain was at football, that he could hide that lack of pace so well. Because I mean, for me, like, pace is so much in football. It really is. I mean, Gitto, you could beat him, but he'd always John Gittins, he'd always get back at you because he was so quick. Whereas Colin, he was probably the slowest lad on the on the books to a degree, and you'd never notice that, would you? You would never thought that.
What a player and a captain, though. Amazing.
Exactly. You know what I mean? It shows you how good he was to be able to overcome that issue that he had with his speed. It was his brain and his commitment, and like you said, he was just such a lovely lad. He was, he was up. I saw him a few years ago, about 2 years ago. He was up here coaching, and I contacted him. I said, "Come to our house have a meal," because he was just living in a hotel. And I've seen him a few times. I went out to drink with him and that. And then he decided he was going to stay down Northampton. That's where he was living, and he got a job with Northampton. So I did catch up with him. We had a chat about old times. He was top man, Fridge. We used to call him Fridge. God knows why that was. I can't remember, but he was a really good lad, and we had some good fun on the holidays. He was the one who tanned the best as well, because we always had a competition when we went away. I remember going to Malta, and we had some fun along the way. We bloody trained hard, but we stuck together, and we had a laugh as well.
Well, lots of memories coming in. Malcolm says, "Hello, Dave. Some of my first memories of going to the county ground as a boy were watching you from the Shrivenham Road stand. Some great years and some great memories. Thank you. Oh, and that moment at Luton. I was going to ask you about that a little bit later. I don't know if well, I was going to ask you, I don't know whether you want to speak about it, but it's one of those moments that most people remember. Do you want to talk about it now? Shall I set the scene and then you can mention
Well, it was basically a through ball. It was 0-0. It was on that all-weather pitch, and basically everybody stopped, including Les Seeley. He was in the goal for Luton, and he just goes like, waves his hand as offside. And I actually thought I was offside, and so I just went to knock the ball in the net, and he went to kick it away by putting his right foot down and then kick through the back of his leg. If you remember how people used to do that, like a little cameo thing that you do. So he obviously did think it because I heard a whistle. That was the weird thing, and so he must have done. And as he tried to do that, he did it, and it went out for a corner, and then we all like looked round, and it was a bloody he not give offside. So, and we ended up losing in extra time. So yeah, not one of my happiest moments at Swindon, but it was just one of them things. I know you should finish, but everybody stopped, and there was just and Les Seeley he wasn't even trying. You know what I mean? If I'd have just run round him, I'd have probably turned around with the ball and come back. It was a weird situation, but it did hurt me for a while. But shit happens, doesn't it? You can't, if you dwell on these things too much, then you're never going to take a chance on anything. You're never going to do well. It's that's life. I made a mistake, It's a shame because we'd have probably got to Wembley, and we didn't. But there was great times. I remember beating Chelsea and a few other teams. I think was it Norwich away?
Norwich, yeah.
Well, interestingly, I was at a wedding. Well, I was really babysitting for my daughter and husband. His agent's Brian Gunn works for him, and he was there, and he was the goalkeeper for Norwich on that day when we went. We drew 0-0 at home, and went there, and I scored two.
You did 2 headers, yeah.
2 headers. And so he said, "You scored against me." I said, "No, I didn't. I scored 2 against you." So I remember that was one of the nights I remember very well. It was a great night, a really good night.
Yeah, it was a 0-0 at the county ground against. It was the FA Cup, and
it was the FA Cup.
Yeah, it was. But no, you'd played Norwich in that Simod Cup run, and of course the Luton game was a semi-final. You'd also played Chelsea. If memory serves, you played Derby as well with Peter Shilton in goal. So you'd had a fabulous run in that competition. Sadly, the Luton game, which we won't dwell on too much because, I know obviously you still think about it. So, but it was one of those games.
I think we played Portsmouth home and away. I think the Portsmouth was it that year in the first round? Because I remember I remember we win by 1 or was we drawing on the home leg and we beat them away. And I think I scored or scored 2. And remember Jonathan Powell, who worked for the was it the Sunday Express horse racing?
Big town fan.
And he came and I was always very friendly with him. He was a really nice bloke, and he told me after. He said I spoke to Alan Ball. He said he went down in my estimation. I thought he was a good bloke till that time, but I asked him. He said. Dave Bamber played well because he obviously sold me to Swindon, and he just said, he's still not good enough. So he said it was very sour grapes, and I didn't like what he said. So I thought, well, that's Bally being a bad loser. So, but yeah, I remember that because I enjoyed that immensely because you imagine you always want to do well against your old clubs like that,
Steve Barrett says one of the best away games, Hull away, April 88, 4-1, Dave Bamber 2, wave after wave of attacks alongside Quinn and Wegerle. Yeah, I remember that one very well indeed. Paul says, Dave used to warm up holding his side like he had the stitch. True town legend. I mean, people really are sending in some very nice messages. So Kevin says, what are your thoughts on the army camp training before big cup matches and other games? Because Lou was keen on that, wasn't he? He'd send you off to these boot camps, didn't he? And
mental. It was just mental. We never get any bloody sleep. It was freezing cold. With the one game. This is honestly true. One game, he was doing flipping manoeuvres at night. He was doing all these coming in, landing. It was all planes coming up, RAF Bryce-Norton, wherever it was, down the line and whatever it was. It was crazy, and he loved it. But we kept winning, so we couldn't really argue. We went to which is another great night actually. God, there was a lot of good nights, wasn't there?
There was brilliant nights. Yeah.
Wigan away. Do you remember?
Yeah, the playoff semi-final. Yeah.
Yeah, and. So Louis decides to take us to Blackpool before we play, and we go to not Butlins. What do you call it? Pontins. So we go to Pontins. Pontins is right by the airport. If you've never been to Blackpool, and not only that, but like the walls might as well be made of paper. We was like, I remember having my coat on in bed. I was that bloody cold, and we never got any sleep. And then we had to play Wigan the next day, and it was like, oh my God, and it was just the worst preparation we could have had. And yet we sort of like, we just sort of, I think them adverse things sort of built us strong and a togetherness. It was adversity and us together, and it was a determination and a set of lads who had that in them, and you don't often get that in playing in sport. It's hard to explain to you, but you don't often get a set of lads that are, you know, a cast iron, and you can depend on a daily basis to go that extra mile for you, or you know, help you out when you're in trouble. It had a good, we had a good team spirit. It really did. Yeah.
Well, that team spirit came through that night at Springfield Park, because you were 2-0 down, if you remember rightly, and came back to win 3-2. And if you remember, the town fans are on that grass bank behind the goal with their celeries and stuff. It was an amazing night, wasn't it?
It was incredible. It was truly incredible. Honestly, there's a lot of games I can't remember. I can't remember the whole game, but that Norwich game, that Wigan game, the Chester game, they're so etched in my memory, and especially the Wigan game, because I knew some of the Wigan lads, and because I was brought up St Helens, which is up down the road, so. I think, did Graham Barrow play? I can't remember whether he did. I knew quite a few of the lads who was at Wigan. So and there was a big, tough, strong team. It was hard, and they was decent. There was a good team, and they sort of had us. Really did have us. And if you see the picture when the last goal goes in to go 3-2, and you see the faces of like two or three of the players and the heads on the hands, they just realise that, you know, all that likelihood is that the, you know, that their chance are gone, and they had probably was thinking, 2-0 up here, we go to their place, we've got a chance.
Yeah, because it was 0-0 the second leg. Of course, that led to that incredible playoff against Gillingham. Dave the Chair says, hello, Dave. Let's hope Mike Flynn's listening to this. Read the training. Mike Flynn, of course, the new Swindon manager. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they train these days, but I would imagine running is in there somewhere. Let's talk about that run after Christmas then in 85-86, because if I remember rightly, the last time you lost was at Tranmere over the Christmas period, like New Year's Day, I think, if I remember right. And he went on that amazing run. We never lost again. It was phenomenal. And, you know, as you said, promotion was secured with a record number of points. What was the mood in the dressing room before you went out every game?
Never thought we'd get beat. Honestly, I didn't. I just thought we'd win every game. Now, I don't know whether that's me being like overconfident, but I didn't get that anywhere else really. I mean, at Blackpool, when we had a run, I sort of got it. To a degree, but never to that level. Never to that level. I just felt we had the best players, we had the fittest players, we had a good team bonding. I just didn't see us getting beat. I really didn't. I just always thought we was the best team, and I never did anything. And I think confidence is fantastic thing in sport, and particularly in football. That you know, it breeds it breeds confidence, and with confidence comes, you know, you play better, you're expecting to do well. You know, it's amazing. Well, never, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, I honestly thought we was going to win every game before we went out. I really did.
Well, you set so many records that season. I think it was 6 successive away wins as well, which is incredible, because you didn't play a home game for a while because of the winter. And the Chester game you mentioned was called off originally and was replayed in April, which turned out to be that magical night when Bamber got a couple of goals, if I remember rightly. Tell us about that match then, because it wasn't a stroll in the park. Chester made it difficult for you, didn't they?
There was a good team. Again, another good team. There really was. And I saw them when I've been saying that I always thought we'd win. I did think we'd win, but I did think that was the shootout for who would win the league. And I did fear them to a degree, and more than I did with any of the other teams, really. And it was one of them games where it was nip and tuck all the way. And we got our heads in front. Was it 4-2 in the end?
Yeah.
And when we went 3-2 in front, I was like, you know, obviously pretty relieved. And when we got the fourth, I thought, well, that's it. That's us. That's the league. That's everything. And it sort of for me, guaranteed what we'd worked for all through the season. And we wanted to go up as champions. We wanted to win the league, and we felt that we should do. And so it was. Yeah, I mean, it was just a special night, full to the rafters, you know, noisy, brilliant, you know, experience. It was just a fantastic night. I really, probably my favourite game for Swindon of all the games. I would say for sure.
Lou being Lou, of course, he didn't sort of take the foot off the gas, did he? Because, all right, you've got promotion. He wants the title, but he wants the title in a proper way. So how was he after that?
I'll be honest with you, I can't remember. But Lou being Lou, he learned. I mean, Lou learned, I'm guessing from what I've read over the years, that Lou learned his stuff off Ferguson, who learnt it off Jock Stein. So there's never any allowance of complacency. There's never any sort of like resting on laurels. That's done. That's finished. To the next one. That's how it was. And it's probably the correct way to be. But obviously, we wanted to savour the moment and have a nice drink and stuff. Where it was like, I remember, I think the Norwich away game, we won and we stayed over, obviously. And he said we wasn't allowed to go out and have a drink. And I think that was one of the few times we just rebelled en masse and just all went out and said, we're going out. We've just like won, beat Norwich. I think it was a first division team, and worked our socks off. And we got, you've got to enjoy it sometimes, but. I mean, we was a good set of lads. We looked after ourselves. We really, really did. You couldn't drink alcohol because if you did, you couldn't train the next day. You could not train. The only time I can remember going in when I've been drinking, and I can remember I was absolutely paralytic. I've been at Cheltenham races, and I've been with Steve Foley and who else was it? Was it Peter Coyne? And I can't think who it was. There's a few of us had gone. And we went for a drink after with some of the jockeys. We were friendly with like called Tony Charlton and Graham Bradley and a few others. And we had this meal, and we've been drinking all like after training all the way through. And I think I got in at something like 4 a.m. and we had training obviously at 10. And we obviously we trained on the running track. Now, when you're still a little bit under the weather, you've got to pick your feet up with spikes, because we all had spikes. We all had spikes to do the running on the track, and I kept stubbing my spikes into the track and like stumbling over. Well, luckily it was Chick Bates who was taking training. Now Lou must have heard something about this somehow, and that we've been out with these guys, because he had spies everywhere. He really didn't get to know everything. So the one and only time I went in after drinking, we had to go back into change rooms, and it was like it was like a minute's burpees, a minute's step ups onto the benches, a minute's this, and I'm telling you now, when you've had a drink and your mouth's dry, I could not actually even physically swallow, and I didn't dare go and get some water. That's how it was. Because anyway, bizarrely, I'd been injured, so on the Saturday I didn't think I was anywhere, because Lou would never put you straight back in. He never did. So he was at Manchester City away, and he announces the team, and he says I'm playing. I'm thinking, oh my God, why did I go out on Wednesday and all this stuff? And so anyway, cut a long story short, I only scored 2 and we drew 2-2, and it was one of the best games I ever played. So you could say that sometimes you can burn the candles at both ends, but you can't do it in the long term.
Yes, we did play in the same league as Manchester City, and yes, we did draw with them. I mean, it just seems unbelievable now, but boy, yes, those were the days. You mentioned the Norwich FA Cup tie, of course. That led to the infamous game against Newcastle, the 5-0 drubbing up at Newcastle. Now, there have been many stories told about that, and you know where it all led. What are your recollections of it?
Well, my recollections were we went up there, it was very deep mud, and we trained for a long time, and we got onto the pitch, and it was literally your boot was going down like nearly a foot in areas. It had rained for a massive amount in Newcastle. You'd never believe you'd play on these pitches back then. And I don't think the prep was great, and then we didn't know anything about this, and then obviously this came out, so it was all a little bit odd and strange, but I don't know. It was it was a weird one, but there you go.
1p Gascoigne suddenly announced his presence, didn't he? He had a fabulous game that day.
He was brilliant, and it was probably one of the few times I saw Chris Kamara never get a kick and get embarrassed all the game. But Gaza, I remember I went to tackle him, and he was near his own goal, just on the byline, and he just toe-ended the ball into my shins, and then knocked it out straight out for a goal kick, and then runs my face and went, "Wah!" And then just ran off. And I'm thinking, who is this freaking nutcase? Anyway, because we'd seen him before, and he looked like a fat boy, and he'd had been Mars bars and bottles of thingy and this stuff. And I thought, we'll he's not even fit. We'll kill him, and he destroyed us. He was absolutely magnificent. But what he did, he cheated. He would just wait, and not run back. Keeper get it, throw it to him, and he was straight running at us. So I mean, you call it cheating, but we used to call it cheating. He didn't track his man back, but when he got the ball there, he was deadly. And I remember him going up onto, is it the Gallagher end? He went up onto the railings, and they was all coming down. And I thought, that day I realised, and he was quite young then, that he was going to be a superstar. You know.
Yeah, incredible. Aldershot on Boxing Day. This is from Pete again. We got to Aldershot. Everyone travelled. Snow everywhere. Got back to the county ground. Had to run around the ground doing laps in the snow.
Oh, so yeah.
You never got away with it, did you? Not like get off a bus, go home.
And to be honest, we was one of the first teams that if you didn't play in the game, that you had to do the running after the game, and a lot of the teams do that now. So we was quite trend-setting actually. But if you watch now, all the teams, the players that don't play in the game, they all do running after, and we used to have to do that, and we used to think like the other teams used to like laugh at us saying, "Oh, you got to do running after this," and because it was never heard of, it was just never ever heard of. But we'd have to play in the reserves sometimes on a Wednesday if we didn't have a midweek game. It was crazy. But Lou used to wanted to get you to play like your opposite role. So I would play centre half, so get an appreciation of the difficulty of playing centre half, and also he'd ask you about which was the best centre half that you played against, and because he always thought that a centre forward was a good judge of a centre half, and a centre half was a good judge of a centre forward. So he's quite a shrewd guy.
A question from Mike. Does he remember the match? I think it was against Bradford. It was so foggy. He came over to the Shrivey Road stand and asked if anyone had seen the ball recently. And does he think matches are called off too easily these days? I mean, you look at the pitches now, and you look at the pitches then, you just think, wow, they'd never play then, would they? Now, if these pitches were around now, they call them off every week.
Newcastle's pitch was insane. And that night, I can remember it came in from nowhere, and it was like, it literally was a pea soup. You couldn't see. I mean, it should have got called off, shouldn't it? It really is not. I mean, you can't really argue that games should be called off if you can't see from certainly at least the halfway line to the goal. It was crazy, but I think. Well, I mean, the weather's much more. It's better these days. You don't seem to get the extremities that we did back in the day with the cold, especially with the cold.
Neil says so many great stories, so thank you very much, Steve, for that. Obviously, the playoff season, we kind of mentioned the Wigan game, the crazy 2 matches against Gillingham, and the eventual win at Selhurst Park, another special night. And you might remember that was produced, that cassette tape, there it is, with Lee Barnard and Peter Coyne on the front of all the highlights of the game way back in 1987. What another great season that was.
Yeah, brilliant. It was fantastic, and we're so nearly out. I mean, I remember was it Charlie and Peter Coyne who scored in the game, and Charlie scored a screamer, and I think their lad scored an absolute screamer from the volley from about 35 yards. And I thought, I can't believe that I think they finished about something like 10 points below us. And as I remember, and I was thinking, it's so unfair. How on earth are we going to lose to these? And Anyway, we dragged ourselves back, and I think that the game that I think we won quite well in the actual final, but the other two games, I think they was very close games, and there was nothing in it in them two games. And at one time, I was thinking, Jesus, I think we only had about, what was it, 15, 20 minutes left, 2-0 down or something. As I remember, it's a long time ago. I might be kidding myself, but we were certainly losing.
Well, you certainly won it. You certainly got back into. I mean, of course, away goals didn't count double and don't count double in the playoffs. So that was in your favour, as it were. But that final at Selhurst Park, lots of Swindon fans there. Another crazy night, another night of celebration.
Yeah, it was great. It was one of them where I think we won. Did we win quite comfortably? I never think there was any danger of winning from an early stage. I think Steve White had a really good game. I think he scored a couple, and I just remember it being it's a lot different than the other two games in that we seemed to stroll for it, and they didn't really put up a lot of resistance. It was a strange night that I always felt that from an early stage in the game we was going to win it.
Yeah, fabulous. Back-to-back promotions, which is fantastic for a football team, isn't it? When it came for your time to leave Swindon after so many great times, how were you when that happened, when you came to leave the club?
I didn't like it because, nobody even come to me and offered me a contract. And I was thinking, from Christmas somebody coming, and nobody even spoke to me. So it never even, before I'd agreed terms with Watford, nobody even offered me a contract. So I just assumed that Lou didn't want us to stay. And then the day that I was going to go and sign for him the next day, Dave Hockaday turns up at my house and said, Lou wants to see you. He said he wants to see you about contracts. I says, well, I can't tell you the exact words that I were, but the occurrence was, well, he should have done it about weeks or months ago. Never pointless doing it now that I've agreed terms, and they won't pay what I'm getting there. So that's done. So I think it took me, Chris Kamara and Jimmy Quinn to go, that they took the financial side off Lou and gave it to one of the directors. I've forgotten his name. That nice small guy. I've forgotten his name. He's right, nice guy. And rightly so, because Lou believed that if you was earning good money, you wouldn't try as hard, which was just ludicrous. You thought the bonuses, you'd have to need the bonuses to try hard to win, which was pathetic. You know what I mean? It was, we just wanted to get paid what we deserved. And bizarrely, I got to find out years after, when I was at Cheltenham races, which I go to every year, the festival, which obviously I told you about. I was having a drink, and Mickey Adams, who I was with Coventry, bumped into him, and he was with Alan Cork and Dave Bassett, and the conversation went, Bertie, it's Big Bamber, you remember him? He says, oh yeah, I remember Big Bamber. He was one of them. He was a bit like Marmite, wasn't he? You either loved him or you hated him. And he says, what are you on about? He says, you tried to sign him. He says, what do you mean? He says, you tried to sign him. He was at Wimbledon. He says, oh yeah. And bloody Macari, he palmed me off with that Colin Gordon. I knew he wasn't going to be any good when he shook hands with me, and he didn't shake. I didn't like his handshake. So I could have signed for Wimbledon. He was in the Premier League, and he didn't sell me, and then didn't want to give me any money, which was just I thought after it was just a bizarre situation that which upset me in a way, because I'd have loved to have stayed there. I didn't want to go. I did not want to go. But it was a good club, Watford, and it was a good move for me. I went to Stoke and stuff, and there was good clubs, but I loved it at Watford. I loved it at Swindon. I had a nice house, nice way of life. Training was hard, but I didn't want to go, and I don't think Jimmy or Chris wanted to go, but we had to go to get the money that we felt that we deserved, and I think we did.
You mentioned Stoke. If I might I don't want to intrude on private grief, but you might well remember a 6-0 defeat at the county ground when you were playing for Stoke, and sadly you scored in your own goal. Do you remember that at all?
I don't actually. Did that happen? Really?
Yeah. Mick Mills was manager. It was his last game as manager of Stoke.
Right. Well, bizarrely, when Mick Mills got sacked, because I fancied us to go up that season, and we had a torrid. I thought we had a good team, and I could never work out why we didn't do well. But I was playing centre forward, and Peter Beagrie was on the wing, and Peter Beagrie used to like come inside, outside, inside, outside. So you'd made your run, and you just in the box, because I'd been playing at Watford, and I had Glyn Hodges and who's me mate Holden, Rick Holden. So they'd get a yard and they'd cross it. So you make your run, and if you got out away from your marker, you scored a goal. He just ended up like that many times. Time he crossed it, you stood still, and so. But I must have played well there, because as after Mick Mills got sacked, he told a journalist and a few people that what was going on at the club, and Leeds under Howard Wilkinson had made an offer of 200 grand for me, and I got to know about it off a journalist who worked for the Sun, and Chris Kamara knew, but he hadn't told me. And anyway, because Mick Mills was very friendly with Chris Kamara, so I was a little bit aggrieved about that. But anyway, I got to find out about it, so I went to see Alan Ball, who was manager there, and I said, what's this? He says, yeah. He says, you're going to go to Leeds, but we're just waiting on. I'm getting Noel Blake and Vince Hilaire in part exchange, but the centre half, lad called Haddock, had got injured, so he needed Blakey for a couple of games, and then the deal was going to go through. So I thought, right, okay, that's great, because like Leeds were, up there in the Championship, and was obviously always been an incredible club, and I unbelievably jumped for a ball in the next game and landed a bit awkwardly, and I felt something in my ankle. I thought, anyway, I carried on playing, and then I was driving home, and I went to sort of like press the brake, and I pulled my ankle up, and I got the most incredible pain. I nearly crashed the car, and I'd broken a little piece of bone that went in the joint line, and I had to have an operation. They signed Lee Chapman, and the rest is history. So that's you look in life and in the game, but that was what happened at Stoke. So I must have played, but I did always play well against Leeds. I remember I scored a couple against them and that. So it's always good to have you good games against the clubs like that. So there was two things that I could have played in the Premier League again. By virtue of just being that little bit of bad luck, or that Lou decided he wasn't going to sell me, and obviously sold Colin Gordon instead.
Simon just sent a message. Did you ever fix the garage door? Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I guess he must know where I lived, and my garage door didn't shut properly up. God knows how can you remember that? Jesus Christ.
Now, well, people remember lots of things. It's incredible, really. We're coming to the end of our time, but I'd really like to know how you are now and what you're doing now, because I think life's good for you now, isn't it?
Brilliant, yeah. I've got 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son. They're 35, 33, 25. My eldest daughter has 2 children. One's very, very good at football, a boy. 5 is incredible. He really is potentially, even at that age, he's literally head and shoulders above anybody who's his age or years above. And she's married to a footballer, a goalkeeper for Watford called Daniel Backman. They they live in Gerrards Cross, so we go down and see them. And just been away on holiday. That was his agent that got married. She's Freddie Shepherd's son, which is Freddie Shepherd was the guy who was the chairman at Newcastle. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And my other daughter lives in Manchester. She's works in that daughter's teacher. This one works in that one works in finance, and my son works with me in the business. I've got about 100 and odd lads work for me in the building game. We do everything, but I concentrate on public sector work, so I know I'm not going to get knocked. I'm going to get paid. It's quite demanding, but I enjoy myself. We have good holidays. I love my golf. Play off 7, so I'm still big into my golf, and I keep myself fit. I finished playing. I was playing when it was 13-12, and I'm 14-3 at the moment. So I think I'm quite pleased with that. I keep myself fit, but I'm having terrible trouble with my joints, my ankle. I think I have to get fused. But these are the things that happen that you don't realise when you're playing football. But you'd never swap it anyway. You'd still carry on and play when you was injured. You still carry on and do what you did and train. And obviously you wear your joints out a lot quicker than other people. But that's we'd never change it and take away the joy that we had. And I don't say this because I've come on your programme. I genuinely loved my time at Swindon, and it was just the best. It really was, and I loved it down there. We loved living down there, and my daughter was born down there. It was really good. Honestly, it was fantastic times, and it was great to speak about them again. Because I'm not one for reminiscing. I'm always one for looking forward. And running a business, you have to be like that. But yeah, I've got a nice house, nice dogs, got a nice life. Can't argue.
Lovely. I mean, just tell us, for those of us who sadly will never have that moment, what's it like when you score a goal that means so much, like against Chester? How do you feel at that moment? Can you remember that buzz you get when that ball hits the back of the net?
That's why I played football. You know what I mean? My dad always tried to get me to play centre half, and I think now I understand that he was right. I'd probably been a very good centre half. I'd probably been a better centre half. Well, I'm sure I'd have been a better centre half than centre forward, but I just couldn't help that getting turned on by that in the onion bag. There's just a feeling of it is nothing like it. People say like it's like sex. It's just one of them things that the high is just incredible. It's like. I suppose that's why I probably gamble. I like the highs. I've always gambled. That was one of the reasons I signed. I liked it, at Swindon, because Lou used to give us a few tips, and we used to win a nice few quid. He used to, his horses very rarely lost. And I've always been a gambler. I've always been a chance. Well, they call me the chancer. That's what I always was. I'd always take a chance. And when you take a chance and it comes off and you score a goal, oh man! And it's as important as them things. There ain't a lot better. I've got to be honest with you. I'm 64 now. I've done a lot of things in life, and them feelings, they're very hard to replicate.
Well, you brought a lot of joy to Swindon fans during that spell. Incredible spell in the club's history. Sadly, of course, as we know, events followed on afterwards, which meant that a lot of those events were kind of, well, the endings. You know what happened. So what were your thoughts when all that went on?
Well, it was very, very sad. I remember getting subpoenaed and taken down to Winchester Crown Court and had to appear there. And I'd just had an operation on my ankle. And I said I can't go on. And they demanded, knocked on my door, took me down there. And, all that sort of stuff happened. And it was a sad time. And I felt a bit sorry for the chairman. He took the fall for it all. And at the end of the day, all right, I'm sure it was on everywhere. I mean, look at Manchester City now, and what they're saying. It was just a club chance.
Sadly, we've lost Dave for a moment. I don't know if we'll get him back in a second or two, but Chris, we just seem to have lost him for a moment. The signal seemed to have dropped out.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye and see if he actually comes back. But my goodness, what stories!
Incredible.
Very,
It could go on for another hour. But I'm conscious that we don't want to take too much of his time, but we were just getting to a very interesting aspect, which is a shame. Yeah.
He's got to walk his dogs. So,
Yeah.
So I'll see if he reconnects. But unless we want to finish it there and doesn't look like he's going to come back on. So
well, we'll just give him a second or two because it's worth getting that story if we possibly can. Just to reiterate, of course, we will be back next week, and we've got some great guests lined up, have we not?
We have. We've got Ifinora next week, and then we got Jerry for, and then we have Andy Williams. Sorry, I keep saying Andy Williams. Andy Nicholas. We've got on. We've also got some others lined up, which we're just working on dates. We've got Colin Calderwood. I'll start again. My names are awful tonight. Colin Gordon, who I think
yes,
Dave
mentioned
talking about, and Kevin Watson. So we've got a few that we're just working with dates on them at the moment. So all good.
And don't forget, of course, we're at Supermarine on Wednesday. I believe it's a 7:45 kickoff. I might be wrong in that, but it is a 7:45 kickoff.
Yeah.
So a first chance to see Mike Flynn's team in action. Of course, he's never been managed a game for the town yet, has he? So, it'll be his first appearance as manager in the dugout, as it were. So that'll be an interesting one. The new goalkeeper would no doubt play a part. And we'll see a trialist of some description.
And B trialist and C trialist.
B trialist, yes. Yes, who may or may not turn out to be part of our season, which starts on August the 5th at Colchester. So we'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't think Dave's going to come back. So we'll finish that for tonight. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. As I say, please join us next week. And if anybody's at Supermarine, do come up and say hello. Okay. We'll see you soon. Bye.